good morning from a little coffee and a lot of Yahuah. We are talking about the lost books or Apocrypha. I'm not keen to use that word as mentioned in my previous talk about the Apocrypha. We're just going to continue now this morning talking about the book of Hanoch. Hanoch is mentioned in the scriptures in Genesis 5:24, Luke 3:37, Hebrews 11 verse 5, and Jude 1:14 and 15. And we'll go through them. Genesis 5:24, and Hanoch walked with Elohim, then he was no more, for Elohim took him. Luke 3:37 and 38, this I was talking about the lineage of Yahusha, and it is the end of it, or the beginning if you want to see it that way. And it starts off verse 37. It says, of Methuselah, of Hanoch, of Yeret, of Mahalalel, of Kenan, of Enosh, of Sheth, of Adam, of Elohim. This is important. It all started with Elohim, who has no Abba. So everything started with Elohim. Hebrews 11 verse 5, by belief Hanoch was translated so as not to see death, and was not found because Elohim had translated him. For before his translation he obtained witness that he pleased Elohim. That we all must do. We must please Elohim. Jude 1:14 and 15. And Hanoch, the seventh from Adam, also prophesied of these, saying, see, Yahuah comes with his myriads of set apart ones, to execute judgment on all, to punish all who are wicked among them, concerning all their wicked works, which they have committed in a wicked way, and concerning all the harsh words which wicked sinners have spoken against him. So, a little coffee, and then we continue with a lot of Yahuah. So let's look at a few points in the book of Hanoch. And we read from the first chapter, and it's called Watchers, and we read verse 1 and 2. Very important. We know that the book of Hanoch was lost for a long time, and now we have his book, and it says, the words of the Barakah, which is blessing of Hanoch, with which he barak the elect and righteous. Take note, elect and righteous, who will be living in the day of tribulation. This is the end time. This is where we're living now. When all the wicked and unrighteous are to be removed. That is going to be happening soon. And he took up his parable and said, Hanoch, a righteous man, whose eyes were opened by Elohim, saw the vision of the Kadosh one, which means set apart or holy, in the Shamayim, with the messengers showed me, and from them I heard all matters, and from them I understood as I saw, but not for this generation, but for a distant one which is to come. Can you see? This book was not meant for then, it was meant for now, for those righteous ones in the tribulation, for a distant generation. Concerning the elect I said, and took up my parable concerning them, the Kadosh, great one, will come forth with his dwelling, and the eternal Elohim will tread upon the earth on Mount Sinai, and appear from his camp, and appear in the strength of his might from the Shamayim of Shamayim. So beautiful, so wonderful. So this book of Hanoch was meant for us today. Abba's word cannot be broken. We will find what we must find, what he wants us to find. Then I'm going to just talk about the following. In Hanoch chapter 89, it summarizes, it mentions events that we will find in the scriptures. It talks about Noah, Jacob, the 12 tribes, Mosheh and Aaron, the plagues, Joshua in the promised land, Judges, Shaul and Dawid, the prophets of Yahuah, and false prophets, and its followers that will be blinded. Hanok 108 talks about the end times. I do want to read something, a few verses there to you. And I'm going to start from verse 1 to 3. Another book which Hanok wrote for his son Methuselah, and for those who will come after him and keep the law in the last days. So he wrote this for his son Methuselah and for us today. You who have done good shall wait for those days till an end is made of those who work evil, and an end of the might of the transgressors. And wait indeed till sin has passed away. Sin will be no more. For their name shall be blotted out of the book of Chai, which is the book of life, and out of the Kodesh books. And their seed shall be destroyed forever, and their spirits shall be slain, and they shall cry and make lamentation in the place that is a wilderness of confusion, and in the fire they shall burn, for there is no earth there. And then we're going to continue from verse 5 and 6. And I asked one of the Kodesh messengers who was with me, and said to him, What is this shining? For it is not the Shamayim, but only the flame of a blazing fire, and the voice of weeping and crying and lamentation and strong pain. And he said to me, This place which you see, here are the cast spirits of sinners and blasphemers, and of those who work wickedness, and of those who pervert all matters that Yahuah has spoken through the mouth of the Nevi'im, which is the prophets, the matters that shall be. So this place, this which we know as hell, will be where those who are wicked, doing wrong, and the blinded that followed after false teachings. Then we're going to read from 7 to 9. For some of them are written and inscribed above in the Shamayim, in order that the messengers may read them and know that which shall befall the sinners, and the spirits of the humble, and those who have afflicted their bodies and have been recompensed by Elohim, and of those who have been put to shame by the wicked men, who love Elohim, and loved neither gold nor silver, nor any of the pleasures which are in the world, but gave over their bodies to torture, who since they came into being did not long after earthly food, but regarded all matters as a passing breath, and lived accordingly, and Yahuah tried them much, and their spirits were found pure, so that they should barak his name. This is so important to know that things will not always be easy for Abba's people, and Abba will try us. He will try us much, but we must be found pure, and we must barak his name. So important, so wonderful to hear. And then we're going to read 11 to 13. And now I will summon the spirits of the good who belong to the generation of light, and I will transform those who were born in the darkness, who in the flesh were not recompensed with such honor as their trustworthiness deserved, and I will bring forth in shining light those who have loved my Kodesh name, and I will seat each on the throne of his honor, and they shall be resplendent for generations without number, for righteousness is the judgment of Elohim. For to the trustworthy he will give trustworthiness in the dwelling of upright paths. So wonderful, so beautiful. That brings us to the end of the book of Hanoch. There is a lot more, but just a few things that I wanted to point out. Then we move on to the book of Yobelim, a beautiful, beautiful book as well. I loved reading it, learned much from it, but without further ado, we will continue from chapter 1. We read the following from verse 1 to 5. And it came to be in the first year of the children of Israel coming out of Mitzrayim, in the 3rd month, on the 16th day of the month, that Elohim spoke to Moshe, saying, Come up to me on the mountain, and I shall give you 2 tablets of stone of the Torah, and the command which I have written, that you may teach them. Remember, we are looking for the validity of these books, and everything read so far points to truth and confirmed by scriptures. Then we carry on from verse 2. And Moshe went up into the mountain of Elohim, and the esteem of Yahuah dwelt on Mount Sinai, and a cloud overshadowed it 6 days. And he called to Moshe on the 7th day out of the midst of the cloud, and the appearance of the esteem of Yahuah was like a flaming fire on the top of the mountain. And Moshe was on the mountain 40 days and 40 nights, and Elohim taught him the earlier and the latter history of the division of all the days of the law and of the witness. Abba was his teacher. Isn't that awesome? And he said, Incline your heart to every word which I shall speak to you on this mountain, and write them in a book, in order that their generations may see how I have not forsaken them, for all the evil which they have done in transgressing the covenant which I established between me and you for their generations this day on Mount Sinai. I was making this so clear, and it is clear that he is the teacher, and he used certain people, and in this case Moshe, writing the book of Yobelim. And then we're going to read from 9 and 10. For they shall forget all my commands. See, already prophesied that people will forget him. Even all that I command them, and they shall walk after the Gentiles, and after their uncleanness, and after their shame, and shall serve their mighty ones. And these shall come to be an offense to them, and a tribulation, and affliction, and a snare. Torah will become a snare to them. It will become an affliction. When I have spoken to people outside a church, or churches, many that I did go to, they would accuse me of being a legalist. I put myself under Torah. Absolutely. And it becomes for them an affliction. Verse 10, And many shall perish, and they shall be taken captive, and they shall fall into the hands of the enemy, because they have forsaken my laws and my commands, and the festivals of my covenant, and my Shabbathoth, the Sabbaths, and my Kadosh place, which I have Kadosh for myself in their midst, and my Mishkan and my Mikdash, which I have Kadosh for myself in the midst of the land, that I should place my name upon it, and there it should dwell. And then we will just read 18, and the last piece, 18, it says, And I shall not forsake them, nor fail them, for I am Yahuah the Elohim. Abba will not forsake us. These are his words. And then we're going to read from 27 onwards to the end of the chapter. And he said to the messenger of the presence, Write for Moshe, from the beginning of creation till my Mikdash has been built among them forever. Abba's temple. And Yahuah shall appear to the eyes of all, and all shall know that I am the Elohim of Israel, and the father of all the children of Jacob, and sovereign on Mount Zion forever. And Zion and Jerusalem shall be Kadesh. And the messenger of the presence who went before the camp of Israel took the tablets of the divisions of the years, from the time of the creation of the law, and of the witness of the Shabbathoth, of the Yobelim according to the individual years, according to all the number of Yobelim, from the day of the creation, when the Shamayim and the earth shall be renewed, and all their creation according to the powers of the Shamayim, and according to all the creation of the earth, until the Mikdash of Yahuah shall be made in Jerusalem on Mount Zion, and all the lights be renewed for healing and for peace and for barakah, for all the chosen of Israel. And so it shall be from that day and to all the days of the earth. There already it talks about the Mikdash of Yahuah shall be made in Jerusalem. And then verse 1 of chapter 2, and the messenger of the presence spoke to Moshe according to the word of Yahuah, saying, write the complete history of the creation, how in six days Yahuah Elohim finished all his works and all that he created, and guarded the Sabbath on the seventh day, and kadosh it for all ages, and appointed it as a sign for all his works. The Sabbath. We cannot get that wrong. Then I'm just going to mention some other points. In Yobelim 6:17, Abba talks about the set times, and something really important we don't find in Scripture is that we are supposed to celebrate the 4 seasons as well as the set-apart feasts. His set times, the set times of the seasons, are also set times. It talks in Yobelim 7 verse 5 to 12 about Shem being Malkisedek, and we've read that before in Yahsar as well and in the scriptures. Yobelim 25 we find Jacob's blessing and influence in the scriptures. Yobelim 30, I'm going to read a few verses. This is rather important and not many has an understanding of it. We read from verse 1 to 4 and 8 to 11. You might know this story, but you might not have the understanding that we will find here. And in the first year of the 6th week, he went up to Salem, which was Jerusalem, to the east of Shechem in peace in the 4th month. And there they carried off Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, into the house of Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, the prince of the land, and he lay with her and defiled her. And she was a little girl, a child of 12 years. And he pleaded with his father and her brothers, that she might be given to him as a wife. But Jacob and his sons were wroth because of the men of Shechem, for they had defiled Dinah, and their sister, and they spoke to them with evil intent, and dealt deceitfully with them, and deceived them. And Shimon and Levi came unexpectedly to Shechem, and executed judgment on all the men of Shechem, and slew all the men whom they found in it, and left not a single one remaining in it. They slew all in anguish, because they had dishonored their sister Dinah. Then we're going to read from verse 8 to 11, and we needed to see the understanding of what happened to Dinah, and then what is said after that. And do not let an adulteress and no uncleanness be found in Israel unto forever of the generations of the earth. For Israel is kadosh to Yahuah, and every man who defiles it shall certainly die. They shall stone him with stones, for so it has been ordained and written in the tablets of the Shamayim, regarding all the seed of Israel. He who defiles it shall certainly die, and he shall be stoned with stones. So what happened was with Dinah, although it was not her choice, she was defiled. And now the children of Israel are being warned not to defile yourselves. And it's written on the tablets of the Shamayim. Verse 10, and to this law there is no limit of days, So it remains, it's still the case. And no remission, nor any atonement, but the man who has defiled his daughter. Remember, the fathers did choose for their daughters a husband or a wife. So the man who has defiled his daughter shall be rooted out of the midst of all Israel, because he has given of his seed to Molek, and acted wickedly so as to defile it. So what Abba is saying here is that if you give your daughter into marriage to someone outside the faith, or outside Israel, you acted wickedly, and you've given your child to the mighty one, Molek, or CH. And you, Moshe, shall command the children of Israel and charge them not to give their daughters to the Gentiles, and not to take for their sons any of the daughters of the Gentiles, for this is an abomination before Yahuah. So the lesson we learn from here, that Abba is making it very clear that we are not to marry outside our faith. Remember that we are scattered tribes, we're all over the world, and we must try and, well, we have to marry our children, or your children, guide our children to marry inside the faith. Because otherwise, it's an abomination before Yahuah. And if we look at the scriptures, we will see, because of the disobedience of Samson, or Shimson, because he married outside the faith, he couldn't withstand. Eventually he gave in and told his wife where his strength lied, and she told the enemy, and that caused him to die. Look at Solomon, with all his wisdom, all the blessing that he had from Abba, with the wisdom, and he still followed after the mighty ones of his wives. And that was the cause of the final straw for the scattering of the tribes of Israel. And then we continue to read Yobelim 33. It talks about the tribes. Yobelim 39 verse 4, it talks about Joseph and Potiphar, and where Joseph was the witness to Yahuah. Yobelim 44 verse 24, Joseph talks about Joseph's sons Manasseh and Ephraim. Really important information to have about the two houses. Yobelim 49 verse 15 stresses that Pesach, or Passover, is a memorial to Yahuah. It's an everlasting covenant or feast. Yobelim 50 verse 1 to 7, it talks about the Sabbaths, the importance of the Sabbaths, and to learn more about the commands of Yahuah, and that all Israel shall be cleansed, and there will be no longer an adversary. Isn't that just amazing and wonderful? That the land will be clean. No more sadness, no more evil. We will all be clean, and no adversary. So that is, I'm cutting it a little shorter because I'm already on 24 minutes, and I do want to finish just this last section. It is not on the books, but it's about Malkisedek and who Malkisedek was. We've read about Shem, who was the Malkisedek, in the Book of Yahsar, 16 verse 11 and 12 we read that, and that he came to Avraham, and he blessed Avraham, and he anointed him. And that is how it happened. The Malkisedek, we will see what is a Malkisedek and what are the requirements of it. So in Yashar we read that, and the Adonai Tzedek Melech of Jerusalem, the same was Shem. So it was Shem. He was Adonai, which is a master. He was Melech, he was king of Jerusalem. And and then they say he was Shem, went out with his men to meet Avraham and his people with lechem and wine, and they remained together in the valley of Melech. And Adonai-Tzedek, which is then Shem, blessed Avraham, and Avraham gave him Masa from all that he had brought from the spoil of his enemies. For Adonai-Tzedek, Shem, was a Cohen before Elohim. So we have now seen that Shem was a king. He was a Cohen because the proof is that Avraham had to tithe to the Cohen, and he gave him a tenth of his spoil. So in the above we see the requirements for a Malkisedek is that he must be a righteous person, he must be a king, and he must be a priest. So these are the characteristics that we find and learn from Malkisedek, and that the Malkisedek order was from Shem to Avraham, from Avraham to well, we'll read it over here and then makes it clearer. So we know now what the requirements are. So we read in the scriptures that in Genesis 14:18 we read, and Malkisedek, sovereign of Salem, brought out bread and wine. So this is just confirming what we read in Yahsar. Hebrews 6:20 we read, and Yahuah has entered as a forerunner for us, having become high priest forever, according to the order of Malkisedek, because he was king and priest and perfect in righteousness. Therefore, he is the last Malkisedek. Hebrews 7 verse 1 to 3 we read, for this Malkisedek, sovereign of Salem, again talking about Shem, priest of the Most High Elohim, who met with Avraham. Okay, we've read that, so I'm not going to read that again. So, like Shem anointed Avraham, passing on the order of Malkisedek, and Avraham to Yitsaq, and Yitsaq to Yaakov. Yahuah anointed Shem, who has no father and no mother, without genealogy, no beginning of days nor end of life, and remains a priest for all time. That is Yahuah. And then we read in Yaakov, in Yashar 36:15, and this is really important to give you a bit of a more of an understanding. What happened is that we learn that Shem, being Malkisedek, and the order was carried over to Avraham, to Yitsaq, and to Yaakov. But the last Malkisedek was, and I'll read this to you, this is really interesting, from Yahsar. And that time the portion of Bechor, which is the firstborn, together with the kingly and priestly offices, was removed from the sons of Reuben, for he had profaned his Abba's bed. And the Bechor, the firstborn, was given to Joseph, and the kingly office to Yehudah, and the priesthood to Levi, because Reuben has defiled his Abba's bed. To be a Malkisedek must be one person, a melech, a king, and a priest. But Abba has split it because Reuben has defiled his Abba's bed, Yaakov's bed. So that's where the order stopped until Yahushua returned, and he became our Malkisedek forever. So today there is no Levitical priesthood, because Yahushua is now our high priest. No priests need to do offerings anymore, because Yahushua was the offering once for all time. So through our obedience, we receive the power to become the following, and we read this in 1 Peter 2 verse 9. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a set-apart nation, a people for a possession, that you should proclaim the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. We praise Yahuah and give thanks to him for his truth. Read the lost books, discern Abba's will, Don't let the enemy take it away from us. Shalom from a little coffee and a lot of Yahuah.